It's the Selling for Life podcast.
If you're buying, we're selling.
Here's your three-headed monster, Steve, Big Al, and Kevin. Welcome to another installment of the Selling for Life podcast, sponsored by Counterquip Parts, the world of parts with a personal touch. This podcast is about more than just selling stuff. We think if you stick around, you will get a lot out of it. If you're buying, we're selling. And this is episode 53. I'm Steve, and I am by myself today. Al and Kevin, well, believe it or not, they are at work, and I am home. But the show must go on. And so I'm going to put out a quick little podcast for everyone. And the topic is going to be based on what happened the last couple days. Me and Al and Ben and one of our sales professionals, David, went to Ohio, and we met with a prospective vendor that we would like to partner up with to sell friction discs. It's a company called Carlisle in just outside of Cleveland, and it was really a great trip. We had a lot of fun. It was super neat meeting the Carlisle people, and more than that, what was really cool was seeing just what goes into making friction discs. These are the discs and brakes, friction discs and brakes for cars and trucks and the construction equipment that we sell parts for. I'm not even going to try to explain what a friction disc does specifically because I don't really know a whole lot about them, but I do know more about them now than I did before this trip. One of the biggest things I learned is that friction discs, there's a whole lot more than just they're more than just a piece of metal, a round piece of metal that looks like a Frisbee. There is so much that goes into the manufacturing of friction discs. I mean, this is truly a science, and what we learned was absolutely amazing. It was a really good trip for our sales team, specifically our sales guy, David, who sells these parts, because if we do link up with Carlisle, we will be able to better educate our customers about what these parts are and what they can do for their machine. But more so than that, what I wanted to talk about was we went there hoping, and it's still in the works, of partnering with Carlisle. And Al and Ben and Dave and myself, we sat down with the vice president of Carlisle. And it was a 2-hour meeting that we had with the vice president of Carlisle. His name was Sean. And what was really cool about the meeting as I watched Ben and Al operate was how they expressed so many different things about Conaquip and the potential that's there in the industry. And without getting into specifics, I do want to say that it is definitely a challenge to keep somebody's attention and to educate the people that you're trying to persuade into seeing what it is you have to offer to them. And so thinking about that trip, I decided that would be our podcast topic of the day. And so the topic of the day is presentation tips. When it comes to presenting something that you want somebody to learn about you or your company or what you're selling, there are specific tips that will help you along the way. And I'm going to go through a few of them and share what Ben and Al were able to do when meeting with the vice president of Carlisle. Number one, you really do need to show your passion and connect with your audience. Now, our audience was one person, but whether it's one person or 100 people, you have to really have an interest and believe in what you're talking about first and foremost. If you don't, you're already fighting a losing battle. Al and Ben are passionate about Conaquip parts, what they stand for, and what they can do for their customers. And so it really wasn't much of an effort for them to have the passion. Connecting with the audience also is an art, especially for those who aren't really good or comfortable at speaking in front of people. But they're very good at that. And it's hard to be relaxed and be yourself when you're nervous. And there's a whole nother podcast that could be recorded about getting over nerves. But time and again, great presenters say that the most important thing is to connect with your audience. And the best way to do that is to let your passion for the subject really lead the way. Ben and Al were extremely honest with Sean about who they were and what they stood for. They talked about the core values of Conequip. And the more comfortable they were, the more comfortable Sean was. And they were enthusiastic and they were honest. And as a result, the response was there. And that was the first thing they did. And that's the first tip of having a really good presentation. Secondly, you have to focus on your audience's needs. Now, Carlisle has a product that they want to move, specifically friction discs. They are aftermarket friction discs. And again, without getting into specifics, they're going to have this product available, and of course, they need to get it out to market. And Conequip is really the place that they're looking for to do it. I think it's just a matter of time before we start doing it for them on a regular basis. Your presentation needs to be built around what your audience is going to get out of what you're presenting. Because that's what they're looking for. That's what they want to know. What are you going to do for me? Okay? Sure, they are also interested in what they can do for you, but in the end, it's all about what it is that your presentation will do for them. How is it going to make their company better? How is it going to make their household better? How is it going to make their job easier? That's what it's all about. So as you prepare a presentation, you always need to bear in mind what your audience needs and wants to know, not what you can tell them. They want to know. While we were speaking to Carlisle, there was one specific example that Ben and Al had, and that was the fact that they've already done this. They've done this with other companies. One is a fuel injection company that rebuilds pumps and also does turbochargers. And when we first met this one particular company, D&W, they did about $10,000, $20,000 in business a year. And then once we were able to partner with them, sales are now getting close to $300,000, $400,000 a year. And that's what Carlisle needs to know. Are you going to be able to make it worth our while to invest the time and money in your company to get a return? And when you're focusing on the needs of your audience, you'll need to be able to show them certain things that they can relate to. And that's what Ben and Al did. It was really good. And while you're giving the presentation, you also need to remain focused on your audience's response and react to them. Carlisle obviously had many questions and concerns about what the relationship might mean. And very naturally, Ben and Al were able to meet those questions head on with reliable answers that I know that Carlisle was felt confident and comfortable in hearing. And they made it very easy for their audience to understand and respond. Getting too technical and too much into numbers, you might end up losing your audience, even if what you're saying is making sense and can be verifiable. If you are inundating the presentation with too many facts, too many numbers, then what's going to happen is you're going to lose your audience's attention. And that's tip number 3, keep it simple. Concentrate on your core message. When planning your presentation, you should always keep in mind the question, what is the key message? Or maybe 3 key points for my audience to take away. You should be able to communicate that key message really briefly. You just got to get to the point. When it comes to summarizing things, you should be able to do it in about 15 words. And if what you are planning to say doesn't contribute to that core message, well, then don't say it. You have to smile, make eye contact to your audience. It sounds very easy, but surprisingly, a large number of presenters fail to do this. Al and Ben were really able to do that. They believe in their message. They know what they're talking about and made it much easier to make eye contact and smile. And of course, if you are seeing somebody that's not keeping eye contact with you, well, they may just be nervous, but you get the feeling or the impression that they don't really believe in what they're talking about, and that's not good. Start strongly. The beginning of a presentation is crucial. You need to grab your audience's attention and hold it. Now, I will say that Ben and Al, it seems like they got stronger as they went along in the presentation. That kind of shows that you don't necessarily have to hit it out of the park right away, but somewhere along the line, you really have to get some momentum going. If you are coming out of the gate limping, well, that's going to make it tougher along the way as you're trying to capture your audience's attention. They're only going to give you a few minutes of grace. And after that, they are going to start switching off. And you do not want to waste too much time explaining on who you are, what your background is, what your resume is. And here's a really great way to do that. You can grab an audience's attention with a little entertainment. You start with a joke. You start with an interesting story. You really have to work on this, and you can't be nervous when doing it. You have to know what you're saying. Some of the best comedians in the world, it sounds so natural what they're talking about. They have practiced and practiced and practiced their routine right down to little pauses, and even stumbles on their words are often scripted. So same way with a presentation, you have to know what you're going to say right away. You cannot wing it, at least not very often. And in the very beginning, you really not got to know what you're talking about. Use your voice effectively. Make sure you pronounce your words. Make sure that they can hear you. And avoid as much as possible the dreaded ums and ahs. The ums and ahs will destroy your presentation quickly. It's a habit that is hard to get out of. Saying and ah indicates that you have to think about what you're going to say, which indicates you may not know what you're talking about. So ums and ahs are very, very bad. Use your body too. It has been estimated that more than 3/4 of communication is nonverbal. So be careful how you're sitting. Be careful where you use your hands. Be careful how much you walk around or how you lean on something. You have your hands, crossed in front of you or behind your back when you're talking. Sometimes that helps. And sometimes having your hands in your pockets is not a good thing, or behind your back. It all depends on how the audience is perceiving you, so keep that in mind. And finally, if you can, relax, breathe, and enjoy your presentation. Because quite honestly, your presentation is not life and death. This might be a really big account you're trying to land for your company, and it might feel like life and death. But honestly, if you can get yourself to a point where you're understanding that nothing in life is truly life and death, unless it's a situation that is life and death, you're going to be okay. And that will help you with relaxing, breathing, and enjoying your presentation. So there are some tips on that subject. Good presentations. I hope that helps you. And again, this is for things big and small. Presenting something to a large corporation, or even presenting something to your husband or wife on where to go on vacation. Anything you do where you're trying to reach somebody and convince them that you are the one that they need to respond to and trust in and believe in, a good presentation is going to go a long way in getting there. So that is it. Make sure you check us out on Facebook and Twitter, also our website at sellingforlife.com. So remember, whether you are selling silk bed sheets or you are trying to convince your wife you really did do the dishes, one thing is for sure, you are always selling for life.